Hello and welcome. I'm Michelle Paver and we're going out live on YouTube and Twitch TV. Just go to my website, michellepaver.com/chat. And speaking of chat, if you'd like to take part in live chat during the program, by all means do. You go to YouTube, just go to the live chat area, start typing, we'll pick it up. Or you could go on Twitter, use the hashtag Torak. Well, wherever you are, it's probably a good guess to say that you're probably in some form of lockdown, as am I. And it's a bit of a drag, isn't it? I hope you're staying well enough to watch this, staying at home. And if you do go out for a bit of exercise, of course, keep 2 meters away from everybody else. Oh, my goodness, what a drag it is. But I've been in my own kind of lockdown, obviously obeying all the rules, but also finishing Skin Taker, which is the sequel to Viper's Daughter. I sent it off to my publishers a few days ago. It's always a big deal when you do that, you know, because it's sort of a lot of work towards the end. It really is, particularly with lockdown and the pandemic and everything. Very intense, great fun. Really making the whole story's taking shape, and I'm really, really pleased with it. I'm afraid I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Other than that, I'm slightly horrified at what I've put Torak in particular through in this one, but I'm really pleased with it. Now, of course, I say I finished Skin Taker, but there's an awful lot that still needs to be done to it. My wonderful editor, Fiona Kennedy, will have to have a look at it and send me her comments, and that fun process of editing will take a few weeks. And then there's the cover design, and there's the great Jeff Taylor working on the different chapter illustrations and the look of the book and all that sort of thing, which is why a long way of saying you won't be able to get your hands on Skin Taker until next year. But it was fun. It was fun finishing it. And I've had a few days of sort of just heaving a sigh of relief, and I haven't yet started on the next book. So tonight, we are going to keep things quite nicely simple. We've only got 2 parts to the programme. One is announcing the first winners of the Clan Champion Challenge. That is quite difficult to say. And then I will be tackling your questions. And we've got a really interesting collection of questions, some really interesting ones. So the Clan Champion Challenge, there we go, there it is. That is something. All you've got to do is create something, a picture, a story, a map, a mask, a piece of clothing about the Wolf Brother books. Then you go to wolfbrother.com and you upload it to the virtual museum. And at the end of every week, people vote. And the winner gets, well, it was going to be, and on the website it said it was going to be a signed copy of Viper's Daughter, but due to the pandemic it's been a bit difficult to get hold of copies of Viper's Daughter for me to sign. So what the winners will be getting is, and I hope this is acceptable, a signed paw printed first edition of Wolf Brother, because I have some of those. That is wow. So that's what they'll be getting. So far, I've been having a look at some of the entries. An amazing selection of sculpture, some masks. Aostra seems to have inspired people, particularly pictures, all sorts of clothing. So now let's actually have a look. The wonderful Elf, aka my agent, has produced a little video showing the actual clan winners. So let's have a look. I wonder if we can. I think those were amazing. I don't know how anyone could choose a winner, actually. I think they were all amazing. Congratulations to Grey Wolf and Picnic Pie, that wonderful Ice Bear and the sort of Renn compilation. But I think they were all amazing and quite staggering. And obviously a lot of fun. I think that's the most important thing. A lot of people have had a lot of fun doing them. And my goodness, we need a bit of fun, don't we, during lockdown? And actually on that, I should just mention that in addition to the virtual museum, there's also an activity pack for Viper's Daughter that we've done, which is completely free. You can just go to wolfbrother.com and click on activities. There's stuff for parents and educators, but there's also the activity pack, which is for readers, and it's got all sorts of things to do. So that might keep you amused. So stuff to do, but yes, please keep entering and voting for the Clan Champion Challenge. Wish that was easier to say. And the books will be going out as soon as the elf sends me the addresses, and then I can sign the books. And actually, the two winners, if you would like your book signed to you, then perhaps you could let the organisers of wolfbrother.com know. Otherwise, I'll just sign the first edition and paw print it. So, just so you know, if I dedicate it to a person, it's not actually worth any money, but a signed first edition without a dedication is worth more. That's just one of those things. But we can ask you that, just so you have the choice. I can do whatever. So that's lovely. And now we have time where we go to questions and comments. This is my favourite bit. I go to the massive pile of questions and comments. Yes, it's time for Ask Michelle Anything. And apologies in advance for the rustle of paper because I have my hard copy. First, we have one from Vicky, which is a lovely one, which is just saying that it's a comment. You've just finished reading Dark Matter and thoroughly enjoyed it. I love the way you say it's a brilliant version of a traditional ghost story, and that's exactly what I was trying to write. And I'm very glad that you only read it during daylight hours. That thrills me because that was the aim. And now we have, not surprisingly, we have a little clutch all about Viper's Daughter. And you've all been brilliant because none of you has included a spoiler. So what considerate fans you are. First of all, Hannah and Eleanor, thank you for writing Viper's Daughter. I'm so glad you got hold of it from Waterstones. You pre-ordered it and it arrived, which is a miracle. And you used to you remember queuing for Ghost Hunter. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. And you're also excited about the fact that Ian McKellen is reading the audiobook. So yes, and it's a wonderful recording as well. So worth listening to. Bethany is a fan of both Gods and Warriors and Wolf Brother. That's wonderful to hear. And it arrived after you pre-ordered it. I'm so glad. Oh, and you're also asking if you could possibly get a signed autograph. That was recording Viper's Daughter with Ian. And wondering if you could possibly get a signed autograph, please. I'm afraid that sort of thing, it's no is the answer with the best will in the world, Bethany, because then if I said yes to you, the floodgates would open and I'd be doing nothing but signing and sending stuff out, which will be a bit difficult during lockdown. When things resume, then I'll be doing signings again, but that's not going to be for a while. We have a couple from Mike Amos. You may remember, he's a regular. He's in Italy, and he's the one with the wolf at the bottom of his garden. So I'm a bit jealous of you, Mike. A lovely long email, which I have read, Mike, although I can't read it all out on screen. But I'm very pleased that we showed your artwork, and you're also very pleased about the TV series. Looking forward to Viper's Daughter being delivered. Gosh, I really hope it reaches you. There may be a few delays, Mike, because of post and all that sort of thing. And then the second one you sent, you had actually then received it, and that's right, you'd read Viper's Daughter and enjoyed it. Again, very sensitive of you not to include spoilers, really appreciate that. And you've sent a photo of all of them in your, I don't know if we can show that again. Yes, there we are, with Viper's Daughter. Do you know, that's the first time I've actually arranged them like that, seen them arranged like that. It looks wonderful. So thank you very much for that. Mike. One from Sébastien en français, but I can sort of translate for people. Just very nice to thank you for your formidable talent as a writer. Sébastien has read Viper's Daughter since he was little, Used to read them breathlessly. Now he's 23, but he's still read the entire collection. A number of you have done this as a sort of, during lockdown, but also in a run-up to Viper's Daughter. And Sébastien, you're just asking at the end si vous aviez une date de parution de prévu. I think that means a publication date. Yes, well, pas en français, I'm afraid. Yes, there we are. That was Torak and Mosi, going back quite a long way when they were young wolves. Sorry, I've interrupted, Sébastien. Viper's Daughter came out on the 2nd of April in England. I'm afraid there isn't a French translation at the moment. So you'll have to take that up with the French company Hachette, or buy a copy in English if your English is up to it. There's Torak when he was about the age of Wolf at the end of Wolf Brother, about 4.5 moons old. And that was me, younger and with not grey hair. So I'm glad those of you who have received Viper's Daughter have enjoyed it. We've now got, not surprisingly, given my announcement of a TV series in the last Michelle Paver Live, got a little clutch about TV. Now, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Is it Kylan or Keelan? Sorry about that. But you were absolutely stunned at the announcement of a live-action TV show. And you can't wait for your copy of Viper's Daughter. Well, I hope it's arrived by now. Here's one from Enzo. Yes, this is an interesting one. Excited about the new book and the new series. Have I seen Alpha, the movie Alpha? Well, I haven't. I saw a trailer. My agent found the trailer about a year ago, maybe something like that. And I saw this and I thought, hang about, this looks rather similar to Wolf Brother. But I never went to see the film. And so I don't know what it was like. That's all I can say about that one. Somebody else that was their take on wolves and the Stone Age. But in the end, it was quite different, I think. There's one from James. Yes, James is 10. A big fan of Chronicles of Ancient Darkness, currently reading Outcast. And the question is, he thinks that the 6 books make a great video game that could let more people know Torak's story. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this idea. Well, James, you know much more about video games than I do. I've actually never even seen a video game or played one. But I know they're very popular. I think it would... Other people have told me that it would make a great video game. I think the way it would happen is that maybe if when the TV series gets made, that might then, spur someone to make a video game. So yes, I've got no particular objection to it, but nothing planned as yet. Then we have Tobias, who is also excited about a live action show. When you were 12, that was, yes, you remember the Ridley Scott days. Now at 22, little old for Torak, but quite like to play Horde. And actually, yes, apparently I signed your books, all 6 of them, at Cheltenham Festival. And yes, you mentioned an old university course mate of mine. Well, actually, she wasn't. I did know her as Jill Ford because she was at Jill and I were colleagues when I was a lawyer. So I remember Jill very, very well. She's a very, very good lawyer. She worked with me on a number of cases. So if you still know her, do give Jill my regards. So yes, and again, someone else who's been reading the series in anticipation of Viper's Daughter, also someone who knows about Greek drama. So yes, well, you're quite right. We're not at the audition stage yet. But yes, why not Horde? Keep that thought. Now we have a whole clutch of sort of practical questions, which I'll whip through relatively quickly. There's a few questions about the pre-order goodies, as it were, the sort of badge and things like that. Really enjoyed Viper's Daughter. Oh yes, this one I found. Please find my proof of pre-order on the Amazon attached. The thing about that is we need to get that to Head of Zeus, my publishers. If you pre-order the book before the publication date of the 2nd of April, we'll try to get your goodies to you. So Peter, aka Elf, perhaps that one we could make a note of too. If it hasn't gone to Head of Use, we can send it. A few of you had written in, I mean, Laura, for example, I pre-ordered Viper's Daughter for my daughter's birthday. We got the book. We didn't get any of the other items, but you only got the book yesterday. And again, we'll just go to Noor, and I'll answer that. We'll go to Noor because she's got a similar question. I pre-ordered the book. I claimed the pre-order bonuses, but it's been a week since I got my copy and I've yet to receive the other goodies. And similarly, Stephanie, yeah, it's a similar question. When I got these, I contacted the publisher's Head of Use and they got straight back to me really, really well. And we have to blame the pandemic a little bit, because the way it happens is that when somebody, does the pre-order thingy to claim their goodies, that goes through to the publisher's Head of Use, who, had things been normal, they would have been packing up and sending all the badges out and things like that from their offices. Instead, over the Easter weekend, it was down to one very dedicated girl, I know her, young woman, I should say, from the publishers, who at her home was packing everything up and sending it out, which she contacted me directly and said, yes, I did. But that was after Easter. And she said, with the best will in the world, there may be a little bit of delay in the postal service getting it to people, particularly that it's good to know. I'm just hearing that other people have said that they have received them. And so that will be, and I know her, and she's this young woman who works in Head of Zoo. She's called Jade, and she's fantastically organised. She is a list maker after my own heart. So once I knew she was in charge, I thought, fine, that's brilliant. So that's great. Somebody, yes, Erin Anna said she's received it. Jade did ask me to tell you that, people who, for the few of them, say in Australia and places like that where the offer applies, that's going to take longer because, of course, the postal system is, all up the spout. So have some patience and it should reach you. Faith has a question here. Really pleased about the TV series. The question I'd like to ask is, will Viper's Daughter come out on the 2nd of April for the whole world, also in Cape Town, South Africa as well? Certainly, definitely not the whole world, I'm afraid, because it's not in many different countries the way Wolf Brother was. That's partly, I'm afraid, down to things like the pandemic, but also just because a lot of the overseas publishers didn't take it up yet. Maybe they will when the TV series comes out, but so some of you may have to wait a bit. I think it is published in South Africa. I think I'm right in saying it's published in South Africa, so you should be able to get it. Again, the whole thing is a little bit tricky about getting physical books because of the pandemic. I mean, I haven't got mine yet. Actually, I had to borrow my mum's. I only had one copy and I gave it to my mother, and then I had to go and take it back from her. But there we go. You will get it eventually. But translations, that's a little bit more problematic. We come to this now. Giorgio, is there going to be a reprint or a new version in Italy of the Wolf Brother books? You read the first 3, but the last 3 are impossible to find. Oh, I hate it when I hear of things like that. Thank you for telling me. That's really sad. I don't know if there's a reissue planned. Mondadori is a big, wonderful publisher in Italy, and they did a great job with the series, but they haven't said they'll translate Viper's Daughter. So I don't know that I can help other than just pester Mondadori, Giorgio. And then we have an interesting one from Zoya, who is from Syria, presently living in Turkey. That must be tough, Zoya. And studied English literature in the University of Aleppo. And you've enjoyed Wolf Brother, and you've done an Arabic translation, and you're asking my permission to publish it. I'm afraid I'm not really the person to ask, Zoya. It's wonderful that you have done an Arabic translation. Thank you for that, and that's marvellous. What you'll need to do is get in touch with a local publisher if you can find an Arabic publisher in Turkey. And then they will need to ask the publishers in England, Weidenfeld and Nicholson or Hachette, if for permission for the right to permission to publish your Arabic translation. So that's the way it has to work, I'm afraid. You see, I don't, I've licensed the rights. So you need to get a local publisher interested in your translation, and then they need to get the rights from the English publishers. So good luck with that. But, even if you don't get it published, I hope it was an interesting experience to do that translation. We have a mystery here. Oliver. Yes. Oliver says, you've just noticed that your copy of Spirit Walker has no maps. And you're wondering, were some copies printed without maps? And then it's lovely. You say, I still love it no matter what. Well, I don't know whether you're in England, Oliver, or in the States. I mean, I had a look. I've got my copies. And I went down and had a look at the various versions published in England. And they all have maps, as far as I know. I had a look at the Americans, and I think they had maps. So I don't know. I'm not aware of any UK editions, certainly, without maps. So I think yours might be a little bit strange, in which case it might be a bit like those sort of stamps, which are, valuable because they're strange. Oh, good. Zoya's going to try. I'm glad. Thank you, Zoya. Well, good luck with that. So, yeah, Oliver, that's a mystery and I can't solve it. But I'm glad that you like it anyway. Now we have some teachers, rather. I've just lost. Oh, yes. No, I had a horrible feeling that I'd lost part of the questions, but I haven't. We have two teachers. Gavin's a teacher who's got a great idea. He'd like to record himself reading extracts from Wolf Brother with breaks where you then ask questions and talk about the text and things, so you can do some teaching in between. It's a fabulous idea. And we've had a number of questions like this in the past. And just to use the other one, before I answer it, Gavin, Karen Stalker has asked, she's a primary school teacher, similar question. This is lovely. You've used Wolf Brother repeatedly to engage reluctant readers with great success. I'm delighted to hear that. And you've been reading it to your Year 4 class, and you'd like to continue to upload it and into Google Classroom. Well, the answer to this, and we've put a note on my website, michellepaver.com/reading. But the answer is, by all means do, provided you're not charging money for this. By all means read it and upload it to something like Google Class, so that it's just for your class. It's a closed audience, as it were, but it's not for sort of broadcasting widely on the internet. So yes, so in other words, teach as you would in the classroom with Wolf Brother, and I'm delighted it helps. Another couple about festivals and things. Caroline, this is an invitation. Thank you to the Portsmouth Primary Literature Quiz. And I'd be one of your 4 authors. I don't know if that means we answer the questions or we ask the questions, or whether it's online or not. But it's 2021 in February. It's a little bit too soon for me to sort of be booking things up. So perhaps you could sort of ask again later, sort of nearer the time, because there's an awful lot that's going on at the moment. But I would just say, though, that some of the book festivals are going online. Hay Literature Festival, for example, is a big one that, end of May, I was going to be going out to Hay, which is a lovely part of the world. And that, of course, can't happen, but they're going digital. And so I'll be doing something for the Hay Schools events. I think it's on the 18th of May. And there's... I did an event for Bookbound, a festival just last week, so with another author, which was lovely. So there are online festivals happening, and there will be more and more, I suspect. We have a nice one, I think it's just a comment from someone, I think she's Icelandic, Gerdur Palmadottir, which is, I want to follow Michelle Paver's stories and chats. Interesting, super interesting. So I think that just means that, you're enjoying following them. Keep watching this program, Gerda. And there's also Instagram, where there's quite a lot happening. And there's a new post from the virtual museum pretty much every day. So greetings from to Iceland. And then Lorraine. Oh, yes, this is something. Lorraine's daughter, Jenny Lee, is going to be 14 on the 2nd of May. So she's also an aspiring writer. So happy birthday for the 2nd of May, Jenny Lee. And good luck with the writing. Keep up with the writing. Doesn't matter what you do as long as you enjoy it at your age. Now we have some nice meaty questions about the books, about Chronicles. We have one from George, and this is lovely. George is 10 and he's keen on both Gods and Warriors and the Wolf Brothers series. I don't know if we can show the picture. That, yes, there we are. He's laid them all out, and I particularly like the fact, George, that they're in the order in which I wrote them. So you've kept the right order, so that's lovely. And you've got a really interesting question here. If all of the Soul Eaters have been defeated, is there a main villain in Viper's Daughter? Well, yes, George, you're right to both of those. Yes, all of the Soul Eaters have been defeated, and yes, there is a main villain in Viper's Daughter, and yes, there is a link between the two. And I'm not going to tell you what it is, because you have to read Viper's Daughter. Anyone who has will know what I'm talking about. Elsa has written a piece of fan fiction, really interesting idea, chapter 1 of Wolf Brother, but from the point of view of Torak's father. And she's given him a lovely name, Anderas. It's a great name. A fun project to do. Well, I haven't yet read it because I'm afraid I've been really busy writing Skin Taker, but why don't you put it? There is a fan fiction section in the virtual museum, so I suggest you upload it and just go to wolfbrother.com and you'll be able to find out, yeah, there we go, how to upload it. But well done, Elsa. And what an interesting idea, playing around with point of view. Now, quite a long one from Sid Vodella, I think we pronounce that. A very nice one, 14 years old, been a big fan since 2014. You've also very nicely said that I'm, as a person, have guided you as an aspiring writer because I focus on quality more than quantity. Yeah. And then you've got an interesting question. The setting is 6,000 years ago, much before immigration of different races. Yeah, you're right, pretty much. So during Torak's time, most of them would have been white. And yet I repeatedly say in the question, this is the question of Sid. I don't know if we can show a little bit more of that. You repeatedly say that the setting of the book, yes. I was wondering, because it's mentioned many times that Torak is brown, so is it a possibility that the people from his father's side must have been the first fictional immigrants, or was he brown by white standards? I'll come back to that. And you say, and this is also something you pick up, which is rather nice. I've mentioned that Torak was fairly attractive and wasn't as attractive as Nygin and Bale, but Renn loved him for the person he was. And you like that because I think there's a lot of pressure on teenagers to look terrific all the time. Actually, I think I say that Torak wasn't as handsome as Nygin and Bale. He could well have been as attractive, because how attractive you are doesn't actually depend that much on how classically good looking you are, but it's certainly true. He's not as handsome as Nygin or Bale, but it doesn't really matter because he's got what it takes. In terms of your question about race and colour, Sid, Torak is the sort of colour of a Native American. That's always the colour I've thought of. And interestingly enough, I didn't know this at the time I wrote Wolf Brother, but some later research has shown, particularly I think from the, I think there was some remains found in Cheddar Gorge, and they've pretty much reconstructed from the genetics that the early humans, in sort of Torak's time, would have had the kind of colouring of Native Americans, that sort of brown. But there would have been some variation. And when I was writing Wolf Brother, I was thinking of the fact that you've got the Sami people who are quite dark, and then you've got the Inuit, who are dark-ish, but with sort of slanted eyes, and then the Finnish people who are much paler. And so that gave me enough variation to include all that. Martha, here we are. We're getting down to, yes, Martha has dressed up amazing. Yes, did a wonderful map for homework, and dressed up as Renn for World Book Day, and has enjoyed Viper's Daughter. You've got an awful lot. Yes, that looks fabulous, really great. And the question is quite a long one. I'll have to give it a very short answer because we're running out of time. Question is, what was your inspiration for Chronicles of Ancient Darkness? Yikes. And look at that map. This is great because it's got everything. It's got Martha's house in the middle, and then there's Unicorn Land, the Wind River, which is and the Wolf Camp, and then Lake Axed, but it's also got Hogwarts. It's got some dinosaurs. It's got everything. Your question about inspiration for Chronicles of Ancient Darkness. In a sentence, I loved the Stone Age as a child. I loved wolves. I met a scary bear when I was grown up, and that really made a big impression on me. And then it all came together much later. So there we are. I don't think I can say it any more briefly than that. We're getting down a few. Yes, Jade. She got into Chronicles when she was about 12 and met her friend Kern. Through that, now 19, creating my own stories. How do you stay focused while you're writing your books? I always get lots of new ideas while writing, which sidetracks me. Yeah, that happens to me too all the time. And I think that's because writing is harder than thinking up ideas. Sometimes it's easier to do that. How do I stay focused? Well, if I do get a new idea, which has happened sometimes. I mean, I got the idea for Wakenhurst, my grown-up Gothic story, while I was planning Viper's Daughter. I wrote it down. I wrote down the germ of the idea, and that way at least I know I've caught it, and then I can get back to the story. If that new idea really starts to take over and say, no, please, you've really got to write me, it may be a good idea to put away the other one and write that one. That's what happened to me with Wakenhurst. I had to put aside Viper's Daughter. But it is hard. It is hard. I mean, how do you stay focused when you're writing? Now, 3 more. Lewis, this is a question which I could do a whole lecture on. It's a really interesting question. He's an English teacher, says some lovely things about my work. And then these questions, which are on behalf of your students. How do you go about making your writing so immersive? Thank you. Do you find that process to be conscious or intuitive? It's a fabulous question. I could talk for half an hour on it. I find it to be conscious in the sense that, to begin with, I do lots of notes. I mean, for example, Viper's Daughter, I went to Siberia for part of the research. I did about 50 pages of notes. This is one set of my notes, and they're all very detailed, day by day, what I was experiencing with ideas for how that might fit into the story. For example, snowy owls really impressed me. And I've got a whole bit that I sort of underlined because I thought I'm going to have to put this in, where I saw this snowy owl hovering in 65 kilometre per hour winds, but this thing was keeping still. So it was a very impressive bird, and I knew it would have to come in somewhere. So that's the conscious bit, lots and lots of note-taking of in the moment, what's it like, what's the sound, what's the feelings, what's the smells. The intuitive bit is sort of keeping in touch with the emotions. What did I feel when I was seeing that snowy owl? And with all the note-taking and then all the planning and the plotting, it can be easy to lose sight of that sort of emotional, intuitive, what was it that impressed me about that impression? Because if it impresses me, it'll impress Torak or Renn or Wolf and the reader. And then there's a lot of hard work, which is back to the conscious element, which is how do I fit it into the story? Because when I was, just to take the example of the snowy owl, when I was writing the first draft of Viper's Daughter, I didn't know where it would fit in. So I just had various owls perching around the place, and they weren't part of the story. And then when it came to the rewrite, I had to think, wait a minute, what role is the owl going to have? And then I thought, yeah, well, back in the third book, Torak killed a white owl. Maybe that's going to have. And then I started to get a subplot. So that's a long, waffly answer, but it's sort of a lot of hard work. Lots of it is conscious, but some of it is intuitive as well, getting back in touch with the emotions. I hope that helps a bit. The last two questions. Oh, goodness, these are such good questions as well. Cameron has a degree in, or is working for a degree in adventure education, and asked me to elaborate on the origins of the death journey and the name soul, the clan soul, the world soul, maybe the world spirit. Where did I get the ideas from? Well, the death journey, I think, the journey as such, comes up in a lot of cultures, but I think I was thinking of the Inuit in particular. Similarly with the name soul, I think that particular form comes from the Inuit. The world soul, I think, is Inuit, or lots of other cultures, Native Americans. Many Native American tribes have the idea of a world spirit. You're connected to the whole world, which I really love too. The clan soul, I think I made up. I don't have anything in my notes which shows where that came from. I would be delighted and not surprised if some tribe or peoples, First Nation, have that idea, but the idea of your sense of good and evil comes from your part of your soul. I think I made that up. The world spirit, again, a lot of that is Native American and or Inuit. I think I made up the idea of the two genders, that the world spirit flips, between a male in the summer and a female in winter. But again, there might be a tribe somewhere in the world. So I'm glad you asked that question. And finally, we have a lovely one from Hector. How did you choose the name Eye of the Viper for the doorway of the other world? And then there's a great picture of Hector dressed up for World Book Day as Torak, which looks fantastic. I think I love particularly the way you've got the clan tattoos. Really well done. I think you've even done the scar on the left cheek. Brilliant. Yeah, how did I come up with the name Eye of the Viper? I had to go back to the first version I ever wrote before it was called Wolf Brother, back when I was at Oxford. It was called The Jagged Land, and it wasn't even set in the Stone Age. And I had the name Eye of the Viper there. And I don't know where I got that from. I just liked it. And I had this image of, sort of pulling back, as if it's in a film and you could see it. So that, I don't know, but it goes back a very long way, Hector. So thank you for taking me right back to the origins of Wolf Brother, 23 years before I actually wrote it, my first attempt at writing a story. Well, I've whittled on because you've asked some brilliant questions. And so we've gone a little bit over time, but thank you very much for all that. Now, yes, live chat. That I know there's been a lot going on live chat, so perhaps we could just catch up a little bit with if there is anything that's been on. Why did I decide to write 3 new books? Yeah, well, that was just because when I started having a look at Viper's Daughter, and I thought, this villain is so good, and I want to go places with him, and then I got the idea for the other 2 books as well. So it was planned from the start. Where did you go to research Viper's Daughter? I went to Haida Gwaii, which are some wonderful, very evocative islands of British Columbia. And I went to Alaska, crawled into an ice cave, which was amazing, and did lots of other things. And then to Siberia, to Wrangel Island, last home of the woolly mammoth. Are there any plans to come to Holland in the future? Sadly, not at the moment, Stevie, for obvious reasons. And also, it's the moment the Dutch publishers haven't taken up Viper's Daughter, so they're not publishing it. Let's hope in the future. A question about clan guardians. If the clans are not allowed to kill their clan guardian animals, how do they get the fur or feathers? Well, they're allowed to kill them if they're starving. But yes, how do they get the fur or feathers? Well, what they tend to do is either they find a carcass, like Renn, for example. Sometimes you find a dead raven, that's died of natural causes or in a fight with other ravens or something. I mean, I found a dead crow the other day on Common. So they might find them like that, or they might get them from another clan. which is it's the way round it, you see. So that will be a way round it. You love the Gods and Warriors series, Alaya. I think that's how I pronounce it. Did you ever meet any falcons? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I did for the research. They are amazing animals. And I think there's some footage of me somewhere with a falcon. Yeah, they're amazing. And yes, that particular falcon sort of flew round and then sort of whooshed right over me. And it was really impressive. Holly finished Thin Air recently. I read it all during the day, but it still creeped me out. Excellent. Have you ever returned to the Himalayas? No, I haven't actually, because after that, pretty soon after that, I got the idea for Viper's Daughter, so I had to go to Alaska. Viper's Daughter was amazing, excellent. I hope we haven't got any. Yes, what amazing twists. And again, brilliant, no spoilers. Please watch out for spoilers, Elf, and don't show them. Thank you for it, and can't wait for Skin Taker. Excellent, Shona, I'm delighted. My son Edmund is named after the patron saint of wolves. He is actually an actual wolf brother. That's right, Edmund, yes. There's that quite gruesome myth about wolves and St. Edmund, isn't there? Can Torak go through any more? You do wonder, don't you? You wait till you find out what he's put through in Skin Taker. How did you manage to describe everything so clearly in Dark Matter? I can see it all. Gosh, I'm delighted with that. It was very, very hard. There's a page in Dark Matter when there's a description of Gru Hooken when Jack first sees it, and I remember that page. It took me weeks to do that. Just a lot of hard work. How do you judge the severity of the details you include for a children's audience? Yes, you think I get it right, but sometimes it's scarily close. Yeah, it's a tricky one. My wonderful editor Fiona Kennedy helps a lot. That there are things that we don't do. For example, I think in Oathbreaker, I had written a scene where Thiazi, the baddie, was going to shoot a small animal alive, sort of shoot it, and Fiona said, no, we can't do that. And she's right, absolutely right. So, it's something we have to be conscious of all the time. How old were you when you learnt to write? From Athena, age 9. Well, I know I could write because I typed my first story when I was 5. So I must have been about 5, I think. Yeah, I don't really remember learning to write. It sort of. One other question. Yes, I think we'll have to, and then we'll have to call it a day. What illness had you in mind when creating Mr. Steen's character? I think that's from another book. Mr. Stern, sorry. Stern's character. What illness had I in mind? Yeah, sorry. Is he suffering from delusional thoughts? He's psychotic. On one reading, he is psychotic. His symptoms are definitely psychotic. But in another sense, he might be right. It depends on whether you believe in devils or not. So I kind of left it a little bit open. I'm keen on seeing more clans having big roles in the new books. Oh, excellent. With customs, magic and rituals. That's significantly different. Yes. Well, I don't know if you've read Viper's Daughter, but the Narwhal clan are quite different, I think, from the others. Skin Taker. Yes, there are some more things. I don't think I can say any more. And then in the third book, Wolfbane, there will also be stuff. So we will be getting some more good. And this is the last one. I think we better do this. In the 2 years before Viper's Daughter, did Torak and Renn ever journey beyond the mountains that they saw in Ghost Hunter? No. They've been staying pretty much close-ish to the Raven clan. They've just been hunting. This last one, and this is going to be the last one, Elf, stop showing them up. Are there any marriage rituals when two people become mates? Yeah, depending on different clans, but they're quite informal because formal marriages tended to come in when property was involved and all that sort of thing. But hunter-gatherers don't really like owning a lot of property because they have to carry stuff. So it becomes much less formal. It's more a question of just saying, right, we're going to mate, or we're now going to become a mated pair. And that's it. And off they go into the forest, which is quite a nice way of ending, I think. I'm sorry I've gone on, but actually, although it was a simple format, you had some great questions. So thank you for those. I'd like to thank the elf, otherwise known as Peter, for actually doing a great job of showing all sorts of wonderful pictures and managing the live chat and all the questions. Thank you to my publishers, particularly Fiona. I'm glad you like Skin Taker, particularly Fiona Kennedy, for keeping things going during a rather difficult time. But most of all, thanks to all of you for asking great questions. Keep them coming. Go to michellepaver.com/ask and then fill in the form, and I'll answer the questions in the next edition of Michelle Paver. You can also keep up to date with me on Twitter at Michelle Paver, and on YouTube and Instagram. So it just remains for me to say, I'll be back in a month or so's time. I hope you enjoy Viper's Daughter if you can get your hands on it. And wherever you are, stay well, look after yourselves, and happy reading.